Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Upon Further Review. I'm Eric Dudkevich, better known as Dude, alongside the coach Shannon Griffith, and we enter Week 10, the sectional round, as the postseason starts this coming Friday. Tonight on Upon Further Review, we've got a busy episode. We've got Casey Kolkman, the head coach from Heritage. We have Todd Mason, the head coach from Eastside, and we have Luke Amstutz, the head coach from East Noble. Coach Griffith, a big show again tonight as we kind of go from the regular season into the postseason. And boy, what a way to wrap things up on Friday night. We were out at Norwell for that big NE8 Championship match between Columbia City and Norwell. And that was a dandy down there with Columbia City pulling the comeback, pulling the win, and pulling out the NE8 Championship.
Yeah, Columbia City really put themselves in a position in that ball game to keep themselves in striking distance. Their defense really kept them in the ball game. They played phenomenally on defense. I mean, they kept the Norwell running game in check, and they were able to get some key turnovers and field position that allowed them in the second half to get the momentum away from Norwell, especially on the Seavers 50-yard touchdown run there in the third quarter. That really turned the tide, so to speak. And I think one of the things I think that Columbia City did all night was they kept the pressure on Norwell. They really kept the pressure on them from start to finish.
Yeah, and I mean, it was one of those games where, it was close in that first half, and then there was a little bit of some breathing room, so to speak, for Norwell through the third quarter. But Columbia City to storm right on back. They were down 12 points in the fourth quarter to come back with that 13-point fourth quarter, I should say, and to get one late. They've played well all year. Norwell has too, but to culminate in a championship game like this, I mean, what we've seen from Columbia City, this is a special team this year for down there in Columbia City.
Yeah, I mean, they've put themselves with what they do offensively to take advantage of their talent from A to Z. I think Coach Fox and his coaching staff have done a tremendous job of understanding their talent, what they are capable of, what they're not capable of, and then giving themselves a chance each and every week. And I think this year, we talked about it before, they've always gotten off to a hot start, and then as the season has worn on, they've kind of worn down. This year, I think they've just kept it going. They've got some big playmakers, Stratton Fuller, a sophomore, who again made a couple big catches on third down for them on Friday night. And then you can just talk about Arndt. You can talk – I mean, there's not anybody on their defense or offense that you could overly single out, because they do play as a team. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and so a big win on Friday night for them, and a lot that went into it. Colton Piper, 140 yards from 9 from 20 passing with no touchdowns. But you talk about the run game for Columbia City. Ethan Seavers, 96 yards with a touchdown. Josh Arns got his hat in the ring with two big touchdowns, and some big plays on defense as well. Leighton Bailey looked great for Norwell, 100 yards and a touchdown, and then also a rushing touchdown from that quarterback, and one of them to Cohen Bailey. That may be another brother connection on the Norwell side. So, it was a Donnybrook of a game that wrapped up with an NE8 championship for Columbia City, their first conference championship since 2006, and their first outright championship since 1990. 2010 was their last NHC title. They shared it, and then the outright title 1990. And now they look ahead to sectionals, which we'll be talking about all night long tonight. They head to Wayne. So it's a quick turnaround, quick turn of the page. You go from the elation of winning an NE8 championship on the last night of the regular season. Now you got to hunker down and get ready for postseason play, because it's win or lose and go home.
Right. Now everything is on the table and there's no more tomorrow, and every Friday night could be your last opportunity for the seniors that are taking the field. And I think when you get to this time of the year, it's better to be hitting on all cylinders than having problems with what you're trying to do on offense, defense, or special teams. But I think, the plays that were made on Friday night, even on both sides, even in a loss for Norwell, Luke Graff may not have had the best game offensively because they kept him in check, but some of the plays he made defensively, he was a madman as their Mike linebacker. He did a lot of great things. And of course, Boylan, what he can do as far as his physical strength. And I go back to the Severs kid. He made one run there that set up the game-winning touchdown where he scampered left down the sideline, cut all the way back, and basically got caught on the one. And that set up the go-ahead touchdown. But it was just a tremendous high school football game, instant classic for that matter. But you're right. This time, now it's quick turnaround. Now they've got Lamarian Nelson waiting for them, and now they're going to have to go defend another big tailback. I had concerns about Columbia City and maybe matching up with Wayne. I think those were put to bed Friday night. I think Wayne's going to have a hard time containing this Columbia City offense.
Yeah, absolutely. The time of possession real quickly, 28:55 for Columbia City to 17:49 for Norwell. So keeping that Norwell offense on the sidelines was really beneficial to Columbia City as well. And we will go ahead and move on from last Friday to this Friday. We're going to go ahead and welcome in Coach Casey Kolkman from the Heritage Patriots. Coach, joining us now. And Coach, pretty big season for you guys. First off, I mean, congratulations on what you guys have been able to accomplish. A second place finish in the ACAC. And now you guys go ahead and get ready for sectionals. Just talk about what this season has meant for Heritage Patriots football so far this year.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, and I apologize for my camera not cooperating with things here. But it's been the step that we were hopeful to take, and it was a step that when you're in your third year that you need to take, and it doesn't always happen, and those programs tend to get off course, then they get off schedule with things. So we knew we had some talent coming back. We knew we had good leadership. We knew we had good work ethic. We still got to go out and play the game. So we're excited that things have played out the way they have. Really of the 9 games, we felt that we only left one out there. That was the lapel game. Early on in the year, we didn't compete as well with Norwell as we had planned. We competed better, and then AC just did to us what I think they did to just about everybody this year. So, yeah, it's been a good year.
Sure. For you guys, especially too, the South Adams game, coming out of that, you get NFL Coach of the Week for the Indianapolis Colts. Really a good spotlight for you and your program and the hard work that the kids have put in all year. Just talk about that for this program, that statewide exposure for this team, and really what your message out of that was, because we talked at that presentation when Mike Pryor and all of them were there from the Indianapolis Colts. Like there were, you had Adams Central that following Friday that you guys had a lot of great football to play yet. Talk about that aspect of it and the recognition that the state gave your program this year, and really how you've turned that into more positives for this program.
Well, everybody always wants to talk to me. I guess I'm just that good looking, I don't know, but they always want to talk about the beard, and they want to talk about Coach Kolkman's team and those things. And, that's the only part of the whole deal that, the older I get, the less that I like. Not because I don't like talking to you guys, but because it becomes about me, and it becomes about, my career and those things. And to be honest with you, I could care less about that. I was just glad that, like you said, the boys got state recognition. Hopefully it shines some light on some of our better players when it comes to, maybe colleges and those things. and it just hopefully just inspired the boys to know that, you know, what we're doing are the right things and they're doing them the right way. And so, you know, if those things were accomplished, then great. But as far as me getting the attention and the awards and accolades, you know, I don't need that stuff. Uh, I would rather it go to the boys, but yeah, it was positive in that regard. Simply for the fact that the performance against South Adams the past few years has not been good. So for them to get that win was just a big boost for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, Casey, this is Coach Griff, man. I've said to everybody before the season started, when I had the opportunity to talk with you at media days, that you just had a different look about you, about this ball club that you had coming back. And I could tell, even though you were always reserved about what you say and how you said it, I felt there was a quiet confidence about what you had with your team this year.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you know, you coach long enough and you know if you got some dudes or not, you know, and we knew we did, but you know, the reservation was genuine because we had some kids that haven't had success, you know, and didn't know what it was like to win. And that's the big step is, you know, Bobby Bowden talks about your turning around a program. Your first year, you get beat up by everybody. Your second year, you still lose, but you lose close. And then your third year, you start to win, but you win close. And, you know, that's kind of where we are now. But that's you know, the line between losing close and winning close is very small, you know. And so, you know, getting the win against South Adams, and then, you know, we dropped AC and then go to Lapel, make a long road trip and lose a close one. And that was tough. Not just those back-to-back losses, but, you know, we lost a couple of starters. We lost a captain in the Woodland game. We lost another captain in the Lapel game. And so now we're heading into week 7 with Bluffton, and we're 3-3 after being 3-1. And it was that Bluffton game was a big game. It was bigger than people think because we were banged up. You know, we were hurt. Kids were in that crucial stage of, you know, not having doubt, but just not having success. And are we still going to be able to do this? And so I think the second half against Bluffton might have been bigger for us than the win over South Adams. I think they're maybe equally, but, you know, that really kind of pushed us into a different realm of, yeah, hey, we're ready for this now. So, yeah.
What let's segue here into the first round of the sectionals for you, because I know you got to jump back into some game planning for this Norwell team that you get to face on Friday night. Let's you know, get your take on, you know, second go around here, and what are your thoughts heading into this ball game come Friday?
Well, my thoughts are you got to deal with reality as it is, right? I mean, and the fact of the matter is they're a very good football team. I don't care what happened last Friday because Columbia City is a very good football team.
Yeah.
And Columbia City's got some guys that were able to deal with Norwell up front, and nobody else has had those guys. So, you know, we got our work cut out for us. You know, the facts are these, Shannon, and that is that in week 2, we played them as well as we have played them since I've been at Heritage. If you look at the stat lines in terms of their rushing yardage and, you know, what they did to us, our defense, we played as well as we had. What got us was the same thing that has gotten everybody this season. What's got Leo, what got East Noble, everybody that they've beaten has been the big plays. It's been defensive touchdowns. It's been special teams plays. It's been things like block punts and, you know, punt returns and, you know, those kinds of things that good teams get you with, kind of they're maybe hidden to the stat sheet or to the normal viewer. So we need to concentrate on those and keep them out of the end zone, keep them from having big plays. That's the thing is
Yeah.
Norwell jumps on you 21-0, and then then you're digging from a hole, and they play great defense to begin with, so that's no place you want to be. So yeah, that's the challenge.
Yeah. And that's what Columbia City did Friday. They kept themselves in striking distance, no question. And they also got a blocked punt against them. That was the crazy thing, that, Columbia City was able to win, even having a blocked punt that Norwell blocked and then, scored upon. But tell me a little bit before we let you go here, Casey, a couple minutes, about your quarterback, Kobe. Tell me about him. And, he's only a junior, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. He the crazy part is I think he might even be playing better right now had he not lost most of last year. He broke his collarbone in the South Adams game week 3 last year. And we had to use Caleb Abbott at quarterback, who's our starting inside linebacker this year. And but Kobe's got a little edge to him. Put a lot of time in the weight room, put on about 25, 30 pounds. He started last year as a sophomore on the basketball team. About halfway through the season, he became a starter. And he's got an edge to him, which is, you need that out of the leader of your offense. He's not the biggest kid in the world, but for a high school quarterback and with what we do, he's a perfect fit. He makes things go the way we like to have them go with our offense. Obviously, by now people know he's more of a running quarterback than he is a throwing quarterback, but he steadily has gotten better throwing the ball throughout the season. So, we're excited about the fact that he's a junior and coming back next year. That's for sure.
Well, we want to wish you the best of luck. And, I want to commend you on a great year. Turning around a program's never easy. You do it with the kids you're dealt with, and you've taken a bunch of kids and each year gotten a little bit bigger in terms of squad size, to the point now where you got them thinking that they can win, not hoping they can win. So I know you'll give them the best this Friday night to give themselves a chance to get against a really good team. But thanks for coming on, Casey, and best of luck.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me, and take care, and we'll see you soon.
That was Casey Kolkman, head football coach of the Heritage Patriots. And like I said, dude, he's done a tremendous job this year with the Patriots. And, I think the next coach that we're going to have a chance to bring on here, we got 3 of them tonight, so we got to keep moving. These guys are trying to game plan and do all these things. But is Coach Todd Mason, the head football coach at Eastside High School and a Manchester alum. I have to put that in there. You got to get that one in there. But with homecoming for the Spartans this week, Coach, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And, another really good season this year, Coach. I mean, you come out 7-2 overall, 4-0, and get another conference win. And you finished up last week at Central Noble with a big shutout. Tell us a little bit about your season, your year in this respect, and, kind of how it's gone after the tremendous year you had a year ago.
Well, starting off the season, we had a lot of question marks. When you lose Laban Davis and you lose some of the guys that we had that were in leadership positions, you always have questions on where you're going to be at. And we had those. And week 2, we went down to Adams Central and battled a very good Adams Central team to a 25-21 game. And we lost Dax, our stud, that week. And it kind of hung over on us on week 2. And we lost Dakota, our other stud linebacker, on the second series of the first game of the year. So we were down 2 linebackers. And we have slowly, as the season progressed, kept getting better and better with our guys that were replacing them. And now we've developed a little bit of depth where we can get people rest and we can do a lot of things that are really cool, that we can keep people fresh. And everybody knows Dax Holman and when you can get him off the field for a couple of plays and get him a breather, it certainly does some good things for us.
Yeah, and Laban Davis was a phenomenal player, and I think St. Francis is finding out how phenomenal of a player he is here in Fort Wayne. But you've also had another quarterback rise to the occasion, Carson Jacobs. Right now, he's thrown for over 600 yards, but is also rushed for 985 yards. How is that adapting from a Laban Davis to, Carson, filling big shoes. And he's done it, I would say, fairly well for you.
Oh, there's no doubt he's done it well. People were like, there were a lot of people that thought that we were a one-man show a year ago. And we certainly were not a one-man show. Now, Laban Davis was one heck of a football player. But, our defense was really good. Our offensive line was really good. And our offensive line is very good this year. And our defense is very good this year. And Carson Jacobs has just stepped in seamlessly, to be honest with you, with what we do. And it's a product of the system that we run. When you have a good 5 dudes up in front of you, it makes it pretty easy to gain some yardage and feel comfortable back there. And I can't say enough about what Coach Daisy has done with our offensive line over the last 6 years. And we were so bad when we first took over up front. We couldn't do anything right up front.
I know that feeling.
No, I'm being serious when I say
that. I know.
and Coach Daisy and I would just sit for hours and hours and try to figure out through scheme how we could block people. Well, we just learned that if you build them in the weight room, they'll block for you. It doesn't really matter. So, we've done that. And I'm certainly proud of those 5 guys up front and Carson Jacobs. They have all stepped up this year and played some major roles for us.
Yeah, Coach, this is Eric Dudkevich. Thanks for coming on Upon Further Review. Beyond the X's and O's, for you, Coach, 3 straight previous seasons of 10 wins or more, looking to get it 4 in a row. You guys have really built this program solid. What is it about, the last 2 or 3 years of this team? You guys got to semi-state a year ago. That motivation, a 3-point loss at semi-state, to come back this year, what kind of motivation did it serve this team to really battle through the tough NECC and really here we are on the cusp of another playoff run and what this team wants to accomplish long term?
Well, motivation, I believe, and people may think I'm wrong, but I think the motivation comes every day in the weight room. We've got, I teach weights, and so I have our dudes every day, and every day is a new day to get better at yourself, and our kids buy into that. For example, Dane Siebert on last Friday power cleaned 315 pounds, and I was like, "That's enough for today. It's on game day." I was just like, if we want to get a little higher than that, maybe we can do it next week. And we have that mentality throughout our program that it doesn't matter what day of the week it is. If it's a squat day, we're going to squat and we're going to get after it. And our kids play like that on Friday night. So the motivation really stems from the weight room that leaks onto the football field. And that motivation is, you've put a lot more time into this than most other people do. Don't allow them to beat you when we have put a whole lot more into it.
Sure. Looking ahead to sectionals, you guys are in 2A sectional 35. You line up against Wabash first. The switch over from regular season to a sectional where you've got different teams from different conferences, Wabash, Manchester, Lures is in your sectional, Whitco, all those different teams, different styles of play, going from the NECC to this kind of hodgepodge sectional. From a coaching perspective, how do you treat, the week 1 game and potential for playing other opponents down the line? How does that look in some of your game preparations for a team that is so good as yourselves?
Well, when you get to playoff time, there's no such thing as being able to look ahead because you can't. If you do, if you lose, you're done. And so, the process is to make sure that we're ready. I just finished up the scouting report about an hour ago, and we got that ready, and we're going to have the kids in on Monday, and we're on fall break this week. So we get a little bit of extra time that we don't normally have in a regular week this week to do some things that we can really zero in. And you can say what you want about Wabash. They're 3-6, but they've got a heck of an athletic quarterback. They got a heck of an athletic running back. And I've seen number 11 take 2 to the house on kickoff return. So that scares you as a coach, and because you don't want those things to happen to your team. So, for the process, it really doesn't change for me. The cool thing is I've never played Wabash. I've never, and so having an opportunity to play a team that I've never played, that's kind of exciting for me. And next week I've never played Wicklow or Manchester. So, with the realignment of the sectional, it's kind of exciting for me that we get to play some teams that we haven't had the chance to play in the past, and we get to prepare for people we don't necessarily know as well as we do our conference opponents.
Now, I've been out to a couple of your practices. You're a pretty energetic guy. What do you love so much about football? Especially, the hard-hitting aspect of it. You're one of those fiery coaches. It's fun to be at practice, fun to be around you. What is it about this game that you love so much that you hope to instill in your players and your staff as well?
This is the last game available that truly requires people of all sizes to work together, to come together as a group. Because if you guys all see them as sportscasters, you see the teams that have that it factor. And what excites me about this game is being able to generate whatever that is. And every team's different. I didn't have to do a whole lot a year ago. Laban Davis did a whole lot of that on his own. This year I've had to do a little bit more. But what's fun is once you get it, that's what's fun to me. And we played our most complete game last Friday night against Angola. We played physical, we played fast, and we were all over the place. We hit everything that moved, and that's what Eastside football is. And I let my dudes know that, and I was pretty proud of how they played last Friday, and I can't wait to see them to continue to develop upon that performance on Friday night and see how that generates throughout the playoffs.
Hey, Coach, you said that you are on fall break, correct?
That is correct.
Let me ask you this. Coaches are, I guess you could say, we're like train rats. We set the schedule and we move forward, and please don't change it on us because we don't adapt to things all that well sometimes.
Right. Yep.
Not having school this week, is that a concern for you just from the standpoint of the amount of time kids have on their hands, particularly?
Well, I just told you I finished up my scouting report about an hour ago, and one page of that is based on, hey, jugheads, we still have to get to bed on time. Staying up all night and sleeping all day leads to bad practices. So I've got all that. We take care of that. Our kids are pretty mature. This happens to us every year, the first round of sectionals, and so we build in some things. We have a huge Halloween team building party on Wednesday night after practice, which I want to let everybody know that of the 4 years that we've had it, that in the dress up competition, I have won 3 of those 4 years. My team that I draft, and we make everything very competitive around Eastside. So we got a competitive Halloween costume party at the bowling alley, and then we bowl afterwards. And it's just the generation of competition. My kids get tired of hearing these types of things, but when I was 8 years old and I'm playing my grandmother in checkers, I'm going to beat her butt. I'm just going to tell you, it's going to happen, and I'm going to talk a little smack afterwards to Grandma. And our guys have somewhat developed that type of mentality. We talk about it a lot, and to get back to we get to do cool things this week that we normally don't get to do, which are really fun, that aid us in the development of the love for one another. Is what happens this week.
That is, I tip my hat to you, Coach, because, I think every coach has to go through this. Some did it last week before the final week of the season. Some are doing it this week. So it's not, uniform throughout, but, the creativeness that you just talk about, I tip my hat to, because I'm not a creative guy when it comes to that stuff. So I always had an assistant that I always hired that was always the most creative in our bunch. And I always kind of said, here's the deal. Whatever you think of, we'll do, because I won't be the one criticizing you, because I just don't have that. But I appreciate that. I mean, I think the kids do too, because you get them out of this atmosphere of competitive sports, on Friday nights, and you let them just be kids. Sometimes it goes a long way.
Sure does.
And in getting them to play at the top on Friday night. So that's a great thing. I commend you for that aspect of things. But before we let you go here, I'm going to ask a question. I get a chance to ask this of Casey, because this is a question I think we all come up with around this time. Do you feel the first round of the sectionals should be seeded, where, you have, the teams 1 through whatever, to eliminate some of these games that round one, you've got the 2 best teams lining up against each other, and the 2 teams that don't have the best records lining up to each other, and you create something that really shouldn't be created in the playoffs?
Well, you're trying to get me in trouble with Robert Falcons right now. I know you are.
I will put the disclaimer on this.
Listen, I'm not really good with filters, and so I'm going to filter this as much as what I can. As a former wrestling coach, seeding is a big component in a wrestling tournament. It's absolutely huge.
Correct.
And the problem with seeding is not being able to get head-to-heads and all that stuff, especially with our new section. But we do have some tools available to us. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to go off the reservation on you on Sager and ratings, but they are a piece that you could use as a seeding criteria. And then obviously when you did have some head-to-heads, you've already got that in your pocket. So to answer your question without getting too crazy, what I'm saying is, I think it would be a good thing for Indiana high school football to seed them. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I was laying in bed on Friday night after the game, and I couldn't go to sleep 2 weeks ago when the draw was going to come out, because I knew we were going to get Lures first round. I just knew in my heart.
Yeah.
and Cherubusco in this sectional is a darn good football team too.
Right.
This should be separated to make sure that we get the right people playing for a sectional title.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the true answer is, but
right,
like I said, I've got a background in seeding things as a wrestling coach. It can be done. It's going to take a little work, but it could be done.
Well, the reason why I bring this up, I think, I've probably been one of those that maybe wasn't for the seating aspect of it for some time, but now looking at it, I think it does a disservice when you don't. And I look at a team like Carroll, for instance.
Right.
Carroll, depending on, I'm throwing out a hypothetical here, because this is no disrespect to the Penn Kingsmen or anybody else in that sectional. But Carroll may not play a home game until I think the regionals, if I'm not mistaken, because of the way the draw worked. And that to me is a crime. When you force a team, any team, to have to potentially play 3 road games in a row, that just doesn't seem to sit well with me when it comes to the tournament. And you're making it any team, in some respects, go on the road for three times in a row. But it happens. It's not that it hasn't happened. It's not like somebody hasn't paid 3 road games in a regular season either. And I think it's one of those things that you're right. I think it can. What would you be your take, I guess, of the IHSAA Coaches Association? Because that has a pretty big voice in all this. And I'm not saying it hasn't been a topic of conversation, but what would be your, I guess, testing of the water, so to speak?
Well, it's just so hard for me to speculate on what everybody's thinking, because I truly don't know is the answer. Have we as a football coaches association talked about it? The answer is yes, we have. But just because we're talking about it doesn't mean the IHSAA is willing to hear what we have to say about it either.
Right.
I think, and I think that's a big hurdle that you would have to overcome before you even start doing any of this. And so, without getting anybody in trouble, I'm just saying that two organizations would have to come together first to at least put together a process of how you would do it, and each side would have to listen to it.
Yeah, I agree. And I didn't mean to throw you in the kind of
you're fine, Coach.
frying pan there, but it's been a conversational piece that I think we've all had, especially with us in our broadcast group over the last couple of weeks. And our compadre Brett Rump is one that I think for years has kind of beat this drum about the first round. And, after studying it, I have to, hate to say this, kind of agree with him on some of these points that he was making.
Hey, Brett's a pretty good dude. You can agree with him.
Yeah. We don't want to give him too much credit now. But I think all in all, it would make a better field, I guess I would say, in the sectionals at least. I mean, coming to the regionals, maybe you throw it back out and you do what you've always done, but at least in that first round of the sectionals but that's neither here nor there, just a conversational piece that I thought I'd throw in there and get your background on it. Cause like you said, being a wrestling coach at one time, you gave that a pretty good explanation as it pertains to the seating component and how important it is, especially in that sport. So, but Coach, we hope to see you down the road here. We didn't get a chance to get up to your area this year, and hopefully we can, get you in one of your games this year. We had a great one last year when we had your Lures game, and that was a lot of fun that night down there on the south side of Fort Wayne when you came into Lures High School and won a big ball game. That was truly a great game, and seeing Laban Davis and all your teams, Dax, all those guys. I think you've got some great kids. I think they play hard, and we wish you nothing but the best from here Upon Further Review and 1380 The Fan.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, and thanks for having us on. When I took over 6 years ago, we didn't get much press, and you guys have done awesome, and all the media outlets have done a great job of covering Eastside, and we got some pretty special kids that play at Eastside, and it's just good to see them get recognized in the bigger format in the greater Fort Wayne area. So we certainly appreciate it on our end, and hopefully we can do some pretty cool things here in the playoffs, and who knows? Yeah, that's why you play the game, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, good luck, Coach, and stay healthy along this long track of the playoffs, and hopefully it will end up where you want it to go this year.
Thanks again, and appreciate it, and hopefully we can see you soon.
That's Coach Todd Mason, the head football coach at Eastside High School, who opens the first round with Wabash this coming Friday. I believe it's still the Apaches. It was at one time,
Yes.
but good. I think, they're playing their best football right now, Eastside. I think they have done some good things through the year, and I think they've had some, pretty big wins, dude. And, I think, they went up to Angola and beat a really good Angola team 28-7 this past weekend. And Angola is one of those teams that was really playing well at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, East Side, we kind of talked about it with Coach Mason. He's been in here for 6 years now, 52-17 through the regular season of his 6th season. And, a team that kind of came from humble beginnings in the last decade or so, but he's really come in there and revitalized the program and really gotten the energy going, which can go a long way because – for a team the last couple of years for what they've been able to do to win 4 straight NECC small division championships, to go down to Lures in the sectionals and beat them in a hotly contested game. I know we also went up to the game last year when they hosted Central Noble and really looked impressive during the regular season. And so where this East Side team is really gone is pretty amazing. And, they've got 6 straight wins since that 2-game skid against Adams Central and West Noble. And really the last 3 weeks, they've outscored their opponents 125-15. And so, 8-0-7 on the defensive side the last 3 weeks, 62-35-28 on the offensive. So, it's really interesting to see what this team can do against Allures or some of the Fort Wayne schools that they've done. And now kind of that realigned sectional, it makes it fun because there's so many teams in that sectional that, you've got teams from the SAC and Lures, you've got NECC teams, you got Three Rivers Conference teams in Manchester, Whitco, and Wabash. And so that's the fun part of the sectional too, is because you get, the way the ping pong balls fly, as they say every year, you can get some pretty interesting matchups in the first round. And yes, Wabash has been a team that has struggled, but I think, and they're under their first year head coach, Ryan Carmichael. But, this is a team that plays really tough competition in a conference we don't hear a whole heck of a lot about in the Fort Wayne area and the Three Rivers Conference. But, those teams like Manchester and Southwood and Northfield, year in and year out, are good teams, Tippecanoe Valley. And so, this game becomes, it's a home game for Wabash. And so it becomes an interesting one off the bat for a team like Wabash that is looking to kind of find their measuring stick with regards to other teams across the area.
Yeah. One thing for programming note here, but you may be wondering why we're spending time on the 1A through 4A in the sectionals. And that's because 5A and 6A actually have a built-in bye this week. So next Sunday night, we will focus on that, those sectional games as for the 5A and 6A, as well as updating our brackets for 1A through 4A as we starting to get into this tourney. And I call it the road to Indy. I don't think there's anything like it. The high school playoffs are exciting, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, you name it. These kids love it. And another programming note, I just got a text from Coach Amstutz. He will not be able to join us this evening. Maybe some technical issues on his end as well, but he's also preparing. And I appreciate these coaches coming on. Sunday night for them is a big prep night. And Coach Amstutz has Angola coming right out of the box with a young team. So he graciously declined tonight, which is perfectly fine. And we wish East Noble nothing but the best in the playoffs. They got a young team led by a great person in Coach Amstutz, and everything that they do at East Noble's first class. And hopefully we'll get him on at another time. But we also were hoping to have our compadre at the 6 o'clock hour on Friday nights, Jim Shevlin, but unfortunately, again, he's had technical difficulties. I don't think our platform likes him, dude. I think it's something is either knocking him off or whatever, but he wasn't able to join us tonight either. So
Yeah.
a couple adapted Justin improvises. Like I said, dude, no excuses. We just keep pushing forward, and we'll head into our final segment here, and we're going to look at these sectionals a little bit more in depth here, talk a little bit about each and one of them and kind of what to expect as we go through it. But why don't we start with 1A, if you got them there, for our viewing audience, those that are catching us on a podcast platform or 1380 The Fan 100.9 FM. We will try to paint that picture for you. But looking at sectional 44, class 1A, Fremont and South Adams is game one that night. And I would say, for South Adams, good game for them to start off with Fremont. Now, Fremont can be a little bit tricky because they've had a little bit of glimpse here and there, but I got to feel that Coach Mosier was pretty happy with this draw.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, South Adams really looked good down the stretch. I mean, they lost at Heritage. They lost at Adams Central, but I mean, they have been able to, they're again, another kind of perennial team that really is in the conversation, especially in this sectional. This sectional tends to become the South Adams or Adams Central sectional, which we're looking at a potential second round matchup. But I also have to say on the flip side of that, a team like Southwood, they're the TRC co-champions. They've had a lot of success. It wasn't that long ago that they were getting, I think, down to semi-state at the 1A level. And so, you got to play who's in front of you. And I think, for both Adams Central and South Adams, that's exactly what it is. And Southwood is a solid team out in Wabash County that can really put things together. And Fremont, they started off 2-0 and lost every game since. So they had they had something up there going for a little bit, but it should be an interesting week 2 of matchups with, I think, South Adams coming through. And I ultimately expect Adams Central to get through. But, whether it's Adams Central or Southwood, I mean, those are two solid. That second game, that game 5 listed there, could be a good one. On the south side, on the bottom half of the bracket, North Miami, Madison Grant, Northfield, Southern Wells. A lot of teams that are just kind of middle of the pack for their conference on down, and to a team like Southern Wells that hasn't won in quite some time. But that could be beneficial to the two TRC schools in that bracket, and Madison Grant can sometimes have a good program.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah. Madison Grant has some good teams throughout the year, and you can't always put anything past them as far as a team. Northfield gets a good draw with Southern Wells. Fremont, 3-6, like you said, this year. Their 2 wins were, I believe, Blackford and Southern Wells. And so that's kind of where their 2 wins came from. Now, Southwood, this is a team that if I'm Adams Central, I'm a little bit leery of. 7-2, 7-1 overall. And now in their standings, like you said, dude, pretty good little conference. They have Rochester, Tippecanoe, Southwood, Maconaquah, Northfield, Peru, Wabash, North Miami, Manchester, and Whitco. Rochester, Tippecanoe are very good teams. And Southwood, like I said, they finished at 7-1 this year, and 7-1. 7-2 overall, 7-1 in conference. Excuse me. I'm trying to do multiple things at once. They have a pretty good quarterback. Weiner, the kid, is senior, thrown for 1,100 yards this year, and their rushing attack is also pretty even. Winter, Lloyd, and Sutton all have 500 plus yards or more on the season. So Adams Central has themselves a little bit of a test going down to Southwood. Now, about think it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, they went down there. It was a heck of a ball game. And so, here's a game that Adams Central probably wished they wouldn't have drawn Southwood. But, I say you have to be leery of a Southwood in this bracket with Adams Central because, again, Adams Central not facing an adversity this year. We saw it Friday night with Norwell, not facing any adversity. Actually, they handled it pretty good. But again, when a team stays around you and keeps nipping and tucking at you, it puts you in an uncomfortable position. And Adams Central is one of those teams with what they do offensively. If Southwood can get up on them and force Adams Central to do things they're not that they don't like to do, like throwing the football and doing things that go against what they are about, then they're going to have a dogfight on their hands.
Yeah. And really quick, and then we'll move on to another sectional. The last 2 years, the state runner-up in Class 1A has come out of this sectional. It was Adams Central a year ago, South Adams the year before. Wasn't that long ago that Woodland was in that mix, I believe. So, this is a strong sectional that that can really go up against whoever comes out of it, can really go up against anybody in the state, and has proven that the last couple of years in that sectional. Looking ahead to another sectional, we'll go to Class 2A, sectional 36. Some outer-lying schools, really the only one in our immediate area is Bluffton and Blackford. I think they probably get by Blackford pretty easily. And then that, leads to Tipton and Greentown Eastern, some schools near Kokomo area that play out there.
Tipton has had some good teams over the year. I think last year they had a really good ball club, and that will be a pretty good test for if Bluffton would happen to get to that next round. Tipton this year was 4-5 overall, 1-3, so not their best year, of course. So, Bluffton has a chance. And then, of course, you talked about the one at the top there, Eastbrook, pretty dominant team. I'm not sure where Elwood and Alexandra rank this year. I would imagine Elwood would be a team that probably, maybe gets by Alexandra.
Yeah, but, that Elwood team is the one. I did see that the other day. 0-9 this year. They gave up 83 to Eastbrook, 62. They have not scored since week 6.
Yeah,
5.
Pretty.
They're one of those teams that has scored, I don't know, probably like 40 points all year. It's not been 38 points all year. Outscored 38-5 Elwood. Eastbrook is probably the class of this sectional. Bluffton has a nice little chance of, making a run, showing what I got. There again, a lot of schools from a lot of different parts of the area. I think this is one that Lures used to be in. It would have to make that trip to Tipton or Elwood. And take care of business very quickly, is what I was always told with those Lures teams, and get out of there. And so I think that's an important part of that aspect of it. So I think Bluffton, they've kind of had their moments this year in a tough ACAC, but I think that's shaping up where it could be some really solid matchups in that sectional 36.
Well, and I would say Bluffton by looks has a chance to make it to that championship game, and now it may be against Eastbrook, of course, but I would say they may have a chance, but there again, there's a team that may has a chance to get on a run a little bit, and who knows what can happen from there on out, especially in that sectional 36.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go ahead and move on to another sectional in Class 2A, sectional 35. This is the one with Bishop Lures. So this one is going to be a fun one. We talked about it with Coach Mason.
Yeah.
We have Prairie Heights versus going to Bishop Lures. Cherubusco travels to Central Noble. Wabash hosts Eastside, and Whitco hosts Manchester. I think Lures rolls past Prairie Heights, and Manchester past Whitco. Eastside, I think, gets past Wabash, but it should be a strong game. Busco and Central Noble, a good NECC rivalry matchup again. Busco has looked really good. And so here's the team, Busco, that can kind of start to play that almost that role of Eastside from 2 or 3 years ago, where, man, it's clicking for them. 7-2 overall. Their defenses look really stout down the stretch. And we might have a Donnybrook of a game in 2 weeks. Not this coming Friday, but the following Friday in the sectional semis, Lures and traveling to Churubusco.
Yeah, and I think they were 7-2, if not mistaken, on the year. But Burhoff has had another good year. Now he's thrown for 825 yards, 11 touchdowns. I have him down as no interceptions on the year, which would be phenomenal. And then, of course, in the run games, this Marks kid, it's got over 1,000 yards rushing this year. Burhoff is second. They run kind of that spread offense where you got to take care of the quarterback as well, because this Burhoff kid can run. Now, I don't think people realize how good of an athlete he is in terms of running. So this could be a big challenge for Lures in week 2. Could be a destination for us for 1380 The Fan, 100.9 FM, that second week of sectionals there with, Busco and Lures, if they get by and win. And then the potential for a heck of a matchup in the championship game, whether it be, Lures in Eastside or Busco and Eastside, one of those two, this is a sectional to keep your eye on of a team possibly coming out of here and maybe getting themselves down to Indianapolis.
Yeah, a good one. And it'll be interesting to see. I think Eastside kind of gets through that bottom half, but that top half,
right,
it's really up in the air, and we could see some great matchups down the road. If we move ahead in 3A, we have sectional 27. We had Coach Kolkman on. The Heritage Patriots are going to host Norwell. Woodland hosts Concordia. And then on the bottom half of the bracket, we have Yorktown and Delta. That game will be in the Muncie area. And then Belmont and Garrett, 2 teams that have really struggled. So really, Coach, just looking at this really quickly, the top half of that bracket, you have Norwell and Heritage off the bat, probably the 2 best teams in this sectional. It's kind of to the point of seeding the tournament so you get better matchups later down the line.
Yeah. And I like this Concordia Woodland matchup just from the standpoint of Woodland's steady improvement through the year with Coach Smith. Now, this is where Lutheran gets to drop into more likable competition, more teams like themselves. They could make some noise, but I think Norwell by far is probably the class of that bracket. But don't forget about Yorktown or Delta. Both are 2 teams that you got to be leery of, especially Delta as the year goes on. And I think Yorktown's another one as well.
Yeah, Delta was the team that beat Columbia City earlier in the year as well. So they, very early on. So a good team in East Central Indiana. If we move to sectional 26, just real quick, some of the Western schools in our area. West Noble hosts a very good Mishawaka Marion team. Lakeland hosts Knox. Lakeland travels to Knox. And then we have some South Bend games on the bottom half. West Noble, Coach, showed some flashes of brilliance early. We're leading the NECC Big Division, and then it kind of sputtered out for them, but they salvaged a pretty good season. So I think there's a little bit of momentum for them because this is a better year than they've had in the last couple for the Chargers. But Mishawaka Marion, one of the top programs in Class 3A. I think they're ranked in the top 10. I'll have to pull that up real quick and just look at my notes there. But, I think that there again, this may be this is one of those where there's a lot of different schools from kind of that South Bend area meeting the in-between counties.
Right.
And so a lot of good football that can be played in the next couple of weeks between these teams. No question. Yeah, we'll go ahead and move on just to speed things up a little bit. Sectional 20, Jake County is the only one in our area. They host Western and Kokomo, the Kokomo area. So this is mostly Huntington North as well, playing Muncie Central. I think Huntington North can get a win there and look ahead. Mississauga's good in their TRC. A lot of good competition in this sectional. But I think the bright spot for there is a winnable game for Huntington North off the bat. And Jay County, we'll see how they can match up against Western. Now, if we go to sectional 19, this is kind of the big one. This is where a lot of things you're going to hear a lot about sectional 19 the next couple of weeks. We have East Noble heading to Angola in round 1 on Friday. We have Southside traveling to Leo. New Haven hosts DeKalb in an NE8 rematch. And we have Columbia City heading to Wayne. And, Coach, this one is going to be talked a lot about because these are some, for the most part, even matchups. I think the Southside Leo one is probably the outlier there, but East Noble going to Angola. That's going to be a good one. Luke Amstutz used to be who's the now East Noble coach, used to be the Angola coach. So It's a homecoming for him. You have New Haven and DeKalb. We've seen what Teagan Irk for the Barons can do and what New Haven has been able to kind of put together. Do they have one of those good nights where it all comes together for them? And then, of course, Columbia City Wayne, a game that will be the 1380 game of the week upcoming. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. These are some great games all across the board in this sectional. And really, it really is up for grabs because Columbia City is the NE8 champion, but they cannot sleep on traveling into Wayne Stadium and thinking they're just going to cruise by.
No, and I like I said, before the game we saw Friday night with Columbia City, I was kind of mixed on this one with Wayne having the number of athletes that they have and whether or not Columbia City would be able to match their athleticism. I think that was put to ease on Friday night. And I do think more so now that Wayne is going to be the team that's going to have trouble containing a Columbia City offense that can hit you with many different things. Now they got to stop Lemarian Nelson, not an easy task whatsoever. And Trimble's come on the last few weeks being able to throw the football. So that will be a dynamic game from the standpoint. Can the Columbia City defense keep Lemarian Nelson in check and make Trimble do things and make mistakes with the football? Then you head up to New Haven to DeKalb. What a good game that one could be. But, New Haven right now is the team that kind of is I call a dark horse because they could run it. I mean, you think about it, Columbia City, New Haven rematch, that's a little scary for Columbia City in retrospect, or even a Wayne because of the number of athletes that they have. So the bottom half of the bracket, probably the toughest bracket there. And if you look at the top half, Leo could come out of there heading for another sectional championship possibility. And what would that be for Coach Dorfler in his first year, struggling first weeks of the season, get them into the sectional finals?
Yeah, because if you look, this is mostly an NE8 sectional, so most of these teams have already played each other in the past. Leo beat East Noble, Columbia City beat Leo, Leo beat DeKalb and New Haven, and so it's been all over, but that's been kind of great. And that's kind of it for the sectional through Class 4A. Again, 5A and 6A are off this week because they have a smaller number of teams in those two classes, so they won't start again till next week. And like we mentioned, Coach, we are getting ready for the 1380 game of the week. This week we're going to be at Wayne High School for the 1380 game of the week between the Columbia City Eagles and the Wayne Generals. Sectional 19 first round in Class 4A. Kickoff is at 7. The PSM High School football tailgate show starts at 6 with the post-game show at the Waynedale Pizza Hut afterwards. Of course, me and Jim will be on the call. Shannon will be off on Friday night. And then up in the booth, Brett Rump will bring you the broadcast during the game of that. And it should be a fun one at Wayne Stadium. And it should be a great night out there as we're excited to bring you 7 hours of coverage on Friday night.
Yeah, and I won't be there. Got some responsibilities with my day job with Manchester being that it's homecoming this weekend and a lot of festivities going on. So I will be there tending to some of my day job responsibilities. Justin Kinney will join Brett Rump for the call of that game. So you're all in capable hands. I will be with you in spirit, though, listening in through my earbuds as I'm sitting in a dinner, probably Friday night.
And speaking of listening us to earbuds, There's plenty of ways to like, to share, to follow the Upon Further Review podcast. You can watch us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. If you want the audio version of our podcast, it's on all of those major audio podcast platforms. Just search for Upon Further Review SAC. Putting the SAC on there helps limit it down to the local one here in the Fort Wayne area. And of course, you can also listen to the show on 1380 on Wednesday nights at 8. With great opportunity right after the Coach Tom Allen show. Tune in on 1380 if you missed the show, and 100.9 FM. And Coach, I think that brings us to the end of the show this week. It's been a fast and furious one. We had a lot of great coaches, a lot of great insight, look at sectional first round games. The field will basically cut in half after Friday night, and we'll be back at it and looking ahead to the next week's games and another round of Upon Further Review.
Yes, sir. And I appreciate all the coaches coming on with us tonight, and especially all the high schools out there that have accommodated us throughout the 9 weeks of the season, especially this past weekend at Norwell. A big shout out to their administration for all their help with that game day experience. But for Doot, Mr. Eric Dukevich, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. We'll see you next week on Upon Further Review.